Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. Eklund will be here in a few moments. We probably will be joined by Kevin Allen of USA Today a little later on. He had to write a story, but Russ, get us started with the pre-show.
So here's the pre-show. I wrote this for a site called fungosports.com that we write for. And here is the guts of it. I'm waiting for the chat room thing to explode because I haven't done anything with it. But okay. The guts of it is, I said, Smash Mouth came out of a decade-long dormancy to pick on Bryce Harper because he signed with the Phillies instead of the Giants. You know, here's a thought. If they ever tour again, not including a state fair, which is like the only thing that's listed right now for Smash Mouth, Philadelphia won't be a good place to play. Oh, and spell check is a must. If people go look at it, it looks like a third grader wrote it. Like, it's just, like, if you want to pick on Bryce Harper because he didn't go to your Giants, fantastic. Right. But, like, this is a business entity. You can't look like you're in fourth grade smashing a star in Major League Baseball and not think you're going to get taken to the cleaners with that. And they did. They got destroyed. And I bet you, the drummer who knows nothing about it probably woke up and said, what the hell is going on with our Twitter account? Because I think it was the lead singer that went off the handle.
It's always the lead singer, right?
Yeah.
Yes, David Lee Roth. Well, no, just in regard, I was talking about this yesterday up in Toronto. Just talk about musicians getting involved in sports and how that can be. It's one thing if you're a fan and you just go to the game. I mean, the whole Drake thing in Toronto, where they think Drake is a jinx. Like if Drake puts on a jersey, that team is automatically going to lose. That's funny.
But Justin Bieber, good luck.
No, but Justin Bieber is spineless because one day he's wearing a Leafs jersey and then the next day he's wearing the jersey of some other team. So I don't think he's really a true fan. I think he's a poser. But no, I mean, Russ, you know this. Bon Jovi in Buffalo. If he came here in concert, he'd sell about 3 tickets.
Yeah,
because he has forever ruined himself, and maybe he doesn't give a crap because But him getting involved in the ownership bid for the Bills and with Larry Tannenbaum, and then potentially moving them to Toronto, his name is mud in Buffalo. I swear to God, they'd burn him at the stake if he came here. That's how unpopular he is. And the classic rock station in Buffalo doesn't play Bon Jovi anymore.
Yeah, again, he probably doesn't care. I saw something the other day that was really alarming. And this is where you feel for musicians. I know probably some people don't because they look at everybody and think they're all rich. But I saw that, Pharrell's song Happy had been played 43 million times on Pandora, and he made like $2,600.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
that's crazy.
And that's the reason why. I mean, people seem to think that all these bands are like a band that Russ and I love, Yes, even though it's not the original members of Yes, or not even like it's the secondary members of Yes, are touring this summer. And everybody thinks, these guys just want to stay busy and play their music and even into their. No, they're not getting royalties anymore. They have to support their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to pay for. If you're like Rick Wakeman, you got to pay for that castle.
Yeah.
Castles aren't cheap. Roger Daltrey's still touring.
Yeah.
With the Who.
Yeah, with the one
the Who, but yeah.
With the one member of the Who that's still alive. Yeah.
Yeah. So the funny thing, you talk about your point about Happy, Russ, and the amount of money they're making on streaming and everything. So there's this pivotal point in time that every record company should look back on and realize they all screwed up, and that they were investing in technology for recording and making records. They weren't investing in technology to distribute it.
Right.
So what happened was, back all of a sudden Napster showed up. Now, MP3s have been available for a long time because they were just the audio codec in video that was being digitized. It had actually been around forever. And it was actually in satellite distribution in the codecs that existed. They've been around forever. The whole point was when Napster came up, what artists did was they got up in arms. How dare you steal my music? And the record companies listened to their artists. What they should have done was said, you guys don't know anything about other than making music. Shut up. And then bought Napster and owned it themselves. And then they would have controlled the pricing model.
Yeah.
But instead
they weren't technology companies.
No, and instead,
and that's where they went wrong. And that's why Will Ferrell, or whatever his name is, Ferrell gets 246 for 60,000 listens.
Yeah, and Metallica sues Napster and then makes Napster, the enemy. And in a way, all that did was explode this, because hey, how many people are getting free music? I can go to YouTube, use a website, convert something to an MP3, and get around iTunes or Pandora or Spotify. I don't need them.
Well, wait a second, Mike. I don't do this in case the FBI is listening. God, Mike.
That's illegal.
I mean, here's the thing about that, guys. Sorry, just jumping into this conversation.
Yes.
But I mean, there's always illegal ways to do things, and they're impossible. It's impossible to enforce these ways of doing things, and this is like the blackout rule in the NHL. This comes to a lot of different things, But at the end of the day, the NHL, the blackout rule, or either the record companies with Napster, or people who are downloading movies illegally now, like the Avengers torrent is out there now, that kind of thing.
Well, the reason we said it is because I was saying, just so you know, so Pharrell on Pandora, his song "Happy" was played 43 million times, and he made like $2,600.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I got a check once from Spotify for $3.12. So I can tell you, and then that was for my band's plays for 6 years or whatever it was. It was crazy. It was something ridiculous. Like since Spotify's been in existence. But what I'm saying here is that these companies and these organizations bet that not enough people know how to do it yet, to do the illegal thing. So they realize that it's out there, but they're not going to bet it. They're not going to bet you're going to do it. But I was around the Napster fight at that time. I was involved, but to Peter's point, my most fascinating story about how off record companies was 1994. Okay, I'm in the big building in New York, the Universal building, the one with the little like pyramid on top of it. Yeah, it's where Universal/Mercury, which is what I was signed to, was. I was meeting with the guy who was the top guy who had just had a huge hit with a band he signed called the Hansons. Remember the Bop?
Oh yeah, God.
Their album came out a week before ours did, which just killed our publicity, because all Mercury turned to them. Like, they were so big that we couldn't, chase that.
So you're a big fan of Bop.
Yeah, the kids are nice enough, but and they're not kids anymore. But I'm in there, and we were doing a record, and we had our record budget out together and all this stuff, and there was $75,000 on the record budget for like strings and stuff like that we were going to put on the album. And this is the point when you're still to record albums like that. So there was like a $500,000 budget for the album or whatever it was, which I thought was absurd, but that's what it was. So I told him, I said, listen, instead of $75,000, can we put $50,000 in? And I want to, I would like to take the other $25,000 and do a band website, Yeah. I said, just like $25,000 for a website. We'll put $475,000 for the album, but I'd like to do $25,000 for the website, because I think the web's going to be really big with music and stuff like that. And the guy looked at me and laughed at me and literally said to me, the day the internet and music have anything to do with each other, will be the day that that I just roll over, and it's complete. He said that everybody is buying into this ridiculousness that the internet's going to have anything to do with music, and the fact that you'd want to waste $25,000 on a website when we could do 2 more songs with a live string section is absurd to me.
So needless to say that this is the same guy who advised some of the newspapers in the country to not,
and he may have been named Danny Goldberg or something like that, that was actually his name, but and he was a big guy, and a big guy in the record industry. Look him up. And he said that to me flat out. So there you have it. I mean, that they didn't have any idea what was going on at that point. And
they do now, and guys should get more money for their work.
Well, here's the thing with that, and we'll move on because we got Kevin. I don't want to waste his time. But here's the thing about all that. Now, and as we were leaving, and as we went independent because we made more money independently than we did with record companies. As we went independent, we realized that you have to realize that albums are lost leaders for bands now. They are essentially what they are is their publicity to get people to come to your live shows. That's what they are. And you're not going to make money on them. I mean, unless you're one of the top 1% or whatever of bands who are going to make money selling albums. Everyone else, even bands who are selling a couple 100,000 like we did, they're not making money on it. They're simply out there trying to get their word around. And record companies have died in a large part because why we had to sign with a record company was they were distribution companies. That's what they were.
And that's the whole point about like we're gonna see artists playing until they're 80. They're gonna be wheeled out in wheelchairs to make money because that's the only way that they can make money anymore. So anyway,
but hasn't that been a kind of a good thing? Like I really enjoyed that it's created
for us.
So, I mean, it's been wonderful to see these like Bob Seger just keeps touring and Ben
the best thing that ever happened to those guys, Kevin, I totally agree with you, is the casinos. The casinos have given them an amazing retirement thing, and they all make very good money playing the casino circuit.
Well, I think it's a yes or no, and Russ can attest to this because I mean there are bands that maybe they wouldn't have toured anymore, and when they are touring and when they perform, they're really good even though they've gotten older. They still have their voice, they still can play. It's really good. A band like one of my favorites is Genesis. In 2009, I think it was when they had their reunion tour. It was a waste of money. Because Phil Collins couldn't sing anymore, and Phil Collins can't sing anymore, and he's still touring. And anybody who goes to a Phil Collins show now is throwing their money away because you're not going to hear "In the Air Tonight" the way it was 30 years ago. You're not going to hear it the way it was 10 years ago. He can't perform anymore, but he's still.
I don't fully agree, but
it doesn't have to be the same as it was.
It's close.
Like it's too harsh. 2009 was fine. It was.
Yeah.
Fine.
Plus, people go to see those bands, Mike. Just
oh yeah.
Like you're just reconnecting.
You do. You totally do. I saw Elton John, recently. Yeah. I thought Elton John would be something I would be like, oh, this is going to be so cheesy. Well, my wife and I had the best time. I'm looking at myself and I'm like, you know what we are. What my parents were when they were like looking when they were going to see like the doo-wop bands or whatever when I was a kid and loving it, and I was sitting there saying, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous."
Well,
we're old enough now, and we're then a lot that we actually are aging ourselves. I mean, people out there right now are going to see Miley Cyrus with their kids when Miley Cyrus is 60 years old. Then we'll see what happens.
There's a 60-year-old woman swinging on a construction.
Yeah,
No, but I'll just say this: if Genesis got back, if Genesis had a reunion tour and Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett were part of it, it was the full band. I don't care how they'd play, I would go. I would go for that. So,
there's no question. It wouldn't matter how good they were, right? Because to get to see them together. Right. It'd be such a huge deal, and to get to see a lot. I'm like that with a lot of bands. I mean,
it'll never happen.
I would see if Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, and then and Jeff Lynne or whatever from ELO toured around as the Beatles. I would be all into that. I'd be fine. And I know people would kill them, but I've heard that and Julian Lennon had him, and then you're set. Man, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to see ELO soon, so
I'm going to go see ELO. I'm gonna see him in Philadelphia because I've gotten all into ELO lately. That's my latest thing.
Yep, same here.
Are you really?
Yep.
It's so funny.
I'm gonna see him in New Jersey though.
I'm gonna probably go and see them in Toronto because it might be the last chance you get.
I never really was into them, and then suddenly for some reason I just completely.
I had an 8-track.
Yeah, it's awesome. He's so talented. He's the guy who should have been the Beatle replacement for John Lennon. No questions asked.
Wow. Let's
move on. All right.
Start the show.
On that highly, highly controversial thing I just said there. I know we could all fight about forever. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday. It's Thursday, May 2nd, 2019.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Peter Tessier.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I am thrilled that we have Kevin back. And I am Eklund. You're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. The podcast comes to you Monday through Friday in the afternoons to fill you in on the coming and goings of the hockey world. And we're going to talk first about the playoffs, but then we're going to get into my off-season preview week, which I've been doing for off-season rumor preview week. But the first things first, I think we do have to talk about a rumor right off the top because it is being reported by John Shannon and others today that Kelly McCrimmon is not going to take the Edmonton job.
Yeah, it's been confirmed.
Yeah, they've announced it.
Okay.
Vegas has named him their general manager, and George McPhee has been kicked up to executive VP. So that's
which is, and this is it's interesting. I wrote on Easter because I was tipped off on Easter morning that McCrimmon wasn't going to take either job in Seattle or Edmonton. So this makes sense now as to why he wouldn't take either job. And Edmonton people, Edmonton fans are getting pretty harsh on Twitter as would be expected because you didn't expect them to be like, oh, good for McCrimmon. So yeah.
I mean, the oddest thing about this announcement is how is this going to play out in Vegas? Like, is it just a title thing, or is McCrimmon going to get to make the decisions? Is George going out to pasture? I just can't imagine that he's going to just turn over the reins to McCrimmon.
It seems too soon, doesn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, it does. And McCrimmon is as we all know, because everybody wants him. He's viewed as a guy that could handle that. But I just don't see McPhee just becoming kind of an advisor. So I'll be curious to know how this is going to work. I'm sure it'll be discussed and we'll hear more about it. But this is a big blow to either Edmonton or Seattle.
Oh, it's a massive blow.
Yeah, to whichever one that thought that he was closest to taking their job, and it really opens up like what's going to happen in Seattle.
This is what I want to talk about, Kev. Here is the great conspiracy theory. Where do you think the great conspiracy theory of all this would be?
I don't know.
Well, I think it's right. This is not a rumor. This is just my own mind going into conspiracy theory world. George McPhee's going to Seattle. Like, you think about this, like, you get a guy who just built an incredible job in Vegas. Seattle could offer him.
I don't see that either.
No,
it's not happening. But it's the first thing I thought about. After his success in Vegas, how much money do you think he could get to go to Seattle?
Well, the first thing I thought when I heard it was possibly Ken Holland going to Seattle, and
I still think that I do.
He could stay in Detroit for another year, and sort of solidify or just keep things stable there with Yzerman moving in, and then maybe take a new challenge in Seattle. I mean, it's
we have Kevin here. We should ask him, Mike, what we talked about yesterday for a minute, and that is the possibility of signing Pavel Datsyuk. Kevin, my thought was, Yzerman should ultimately stay away from it because he played with them. Because even though he might be able to teach a few players a few things, I think he needs to turn the page from those Red Wings.
You're right on, Russ. It's really not even an option that's being considered in Detroit. Basically, they've given in to what the fans want here. I mean, the fans wanted a complete rebuild, and now they've got. Not only do they have the rebuild they want, they've got the GM they wanted, and he's going to have a lengthy honeymoon period. He can do no wrong, and whatever he does, people are going to say, "Well, that's brilliant." No matter what it is, no matter what he does, and and frankly, he will do. He's a very aggressive GM, as we all know, and like if he could somehow figure out a way to get rid of Justin Advocator's contract, and that seems to be a very difficult
proposition.
Yeah, for sure. But if he could do that, I think fans would see that as just the beginning of it, because he only scored 6 goals last year, and he's got 4 more years left, and so forth. But I just think that everybody is so excited in Detroit. Like I don't know. I was thinking about this before, and maybe some of you can come up with. But can you remember a time when there was a guy that a fan base was so excited to have as their GM that he would have? Yeah. I couldn't come up with one.
I could come up with one because it was right here in River City when Scotty Bowman left the Canadiens after 4 Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
came to Buffalo.
That's not bad.
Yeah, as GM and head coach, and then they got to the semifinals in their first year. Everybody thought he's going to bring the cup to Buffalo, and then it got progressively worse as he went along. So I think that's closest. And honestly, if you're talking about coach or general manager, I think Mike Babcock in Toronto.
Well, Bab as a coach, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Although I'd love to get your thoughts on this because it's something that I've been talking about with sort of GMs around the league. Right. Before we thought that Babcock was bulletproof because of his contract.
Yeah.
But when we now see like the Florida Panthers willing to pay Joel Quenneville what they did,
right?
So is he really bulletproof? I think he isn't anymore because if you buy him out, he's going to end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And you may end up having to pay him a little bit, but not anywhere near.
I really want to talk about this with Kevin. I agree with you on this one completely. And then I'll let Mike go, but one of the things I've felt, and you covered him forever in Detroit, but I've been really disappointed with his interactions with the media in Toronto over the last couple years. Like, I feel as if he's been disingenuous. I feel as if he is because he's constantly like was he always the everything's fine coach? Is that what he does?
Well, no, he's the sun's always coming up type coach.
He was
optimistic that all the time. Hey, the sun's coming up tomorrow. It's a new day and all that. I mean,
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, like he always.
That has always been his MO.
Here's the thing about he's not everybody's cup of tea. I think he's a great coach. I really do. I think he can take any team that you give him and make it better than it is. Mm-hmm. But he does have some limitations. He tends to tick off the guys, and in Detroit it didn't matter because of the way it worked. Is that everybody seemed to understand that he made them better, and they accepted that. But that doesn't usually happen. Usually, when you tick off the players, it goes south on you.
I mean, this is the thing. I don't think Mike Babcock has made many mistakes when it comes to talking to the media, when it comes to press conferences, when it comes to dealing with, dealing with any aspect of the media. He miscalculated at the end of the regular season and after Game 7 because I think the fan base would have said, okay, he accepted accountability for certain aspects of the team, their failures going into that series. Nobody picked Boston. Nobody picked Toronto. Everybody picked Boston. So everybody was expecting Boston to win that series.
But Mike, they really weren't. I said this going in. All the Toronto Maple Leafs fans.
I picked Toronto.
Maple Leafs fans said that Boston was going to win, but it was a defensive mechanism.
That's true.
Nobody thought.
Well, I can say I did. I did.
I think even with you, Mike, I think it was a little bit of a defensive mechanism because in your heart, you thought the Maple Leafs had a shot.
No, in my heart, did I want them to win because it would be a good story?
You thought they had a shot.
You're not the Michael Bird.
Honestly, I swear.
If I put you on the stand and I said, Mike, if they played that series 10 times, do you believe that the Bruins would win that 10 times?
Yes.
You would not. You don't believe that. So, but
this is the thing, Mike. Kevin, he will say that because Mike is a counter guy. Like his whole concept is if I say they're gonna win, there's no way.
Right. No, and that's what it was with most Maple Leaf fans because Maple Leaf fans are smart. Like they knew the Maple Leafs had a shot. Now, was Boston the better team? For sure. They were. No doubt about it.
But my point regarding Babcock was he miscalculated what the reaction would be. He thought he could sort of fly over the radar and say, well, this happened, that happened, and he really did not say, the buck stops here type of thing. And then Kyle Dubas came out 15 minutes later, and like I said, he accepted the responsibility for everything, including 9/11 and the Kennedy assassination. So the contrast there, and then. Everybody knows that the coach in waiting is Sheldon Keefe. Everybody knows it. It's just a question of when. Is it next year? Is it the year after that? Is it now?
Does Sheldon Keefe know that though? And is he patient enough?
Yes, I would think he knows that because, Elliot Friedman said last week or a few days ago in his 31 Thoughts that he thought that Buffalo would put in an inquiry regarding permission to talk to Keefe. I doubt seriously that the Leafs would grant it because, they may not fire Babcock. They may not fire him until next year or the year after that, or maybe he plays out the entire 8 years of his contract. But the next coach of the Maple Leafs is the guy that Kyle Dubas hired in Sault Ste. Marie when nobody else wanted him hired as a coach, the guy that he brought to the Marlies and won a Calder Cup with, and the guy that I think will be his bench boss when Babcock leaves. I don't think
Babcock's getting fired this year.
Neither do I.
Now, he could get fired in the middle of the year if they were in last place. Yes, that could happen. But I don't think he's getting fired. But I think because it was leaked out that Dubas does have the autonomy to fire him.
Yes.
Dubas is sort of making him twist in the wind a little now.
Yeah, that was leaked out.
Right.
Doesn't that feel completely like something that's put out there?
No question. But I was just going to finish up and say, I think Dubas did that because Babcock wouldn't take responsibility for anything.
He's holding his feet to the fire is what he's doing.
Yeah. He apologized for nothing. He didn't.
Yeah, I just anyway, we'll move on from that. But I do think that just the way he was talking was making me insane because it's just like, he's screaming at his players on the bench in total anger. And then the next minute, Pierre's sitting there talking to the microphone. He's like, we're playing pretty well. So are they. It's a great game. Isn't that nice? like, come on, man. Just like, give us something like.
Yeah, but what coach is going to let you in and tell you?
It's not a matter of letting you in. It's just a matter of like you look like you're insane to go from like screaming 1 second earlier to being like everything is okay the next second.
Yeah, I mean,
what about Tortorella?
Nashville's Peter Laviolette, after saying all season long that that they were working on the power play and it was close and it was getting there. I mean, at the very end, and he spoke more than 5 minutes. I think it was 5 minutes and 20 seconds,
right,
without stopping, and took total blame for the power play.
That I appreciate.
More than 5 minutes he talked about,
and that's good to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's real to me. That's something that's real, and even though shouldn't all be on him.
So, Kevin, let me ask you about the playoffs right now because there's a number of stories that I think you could consider. I mean, obviously, Columbus beating Tampa was the biggest surprise of them all. But now, as we move into the second round, Carolina, a team that's just been decimated with injuries, including their starting goalie. Now they're one game away from the Eastern Conference Final with half of the Charlotte Checkers playing on their roster.
It's amazing. Like, we have two Cinderellas. We got two Cinderellas at the same ball. They're going to meet.
On a collision course.
Over the head.
I said this yesterday in a column, and some people didn't sort of see what I was talking about. I wasn't saying that I compared the Carolina Hurricanes to the Blackhawks in that period when they were winning all the cups. And what I was talking about was style of play, not that they were as good as the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And the style of play, what I meant is that what really I remember about that Blackhawk team was their ability just to kind of hang with every team on every night until they figured out a way to win, and then they would do it. It was always close games. They, if it was a speed game, they'd play a speed game and they'd hang in and go back and forth. And then lo and behold, at the end, they had figured out how to win the game. And that's what I see with these Hurricanes. They just stay competitive. They stay in the game. They hang around. They battle. They compete. They hang in there. And then by the end of the game, they've somehow figured out a way to win. It's really been impressive. And, when you consider that 16 days ago, they were down 2-0, and they've gone 7-1 since then. And they've had just a variety of different heroes on every night. They had a cast-off goalie, and then that goalie got hurt, and we got a new backup goalie, a backup to the cast-off goalie, and stepping up. Like,
whatever.
That's incredible.
Kevin, we were saying
they're playing the Islanders though right now, so the Islanders the goalies are getting a break because they are playing a team that has trouble scoring. But at the same time,
that's true.
what Mrazek did in the last series cannot be underplayed. I mean, that was an impressive.
Yeah. Except
that was the Capitals.
They're not having trouble scoring against the best goalie tandem in the NHL last season. I mean, who cares if the games are 2-1 or whatever? Like, they're still scoring, and that was the area that Nash or that the Islanders are supposed to be so much better than, and they're not right now. It's the other way around.
And I did write about when I talked about the series. Remember Peter, like, because I've been writing about the Islanders a lot this year. I've been covering like the Islanders at times when we needed a writer, and that Greiss was a lot better against the Hurricanes this year, and I was really
goalie.
Well, no, I think they're both really good. I think, and they both had a great years. Their statistics were almost exactly the same, as much as you guys seem to not want to admit that.
Neither of them will help them score.
No, I know that for sure. But but at the same time, I think that the decision to not go to Greiss, and maybe they will now completely go to Greiss, but it was kind of surprising to me that because based on I mean, there was no question that Leonard had a better record against the Penguins, and that was like the way to go for sure.
Don't you find it sort of disingenuous that they're down 3-0 and we're talking about a goalie switch as being what I mean? Like that.
No, it shouldn't have been at 3-0. It should have been at 2-0.
Well, all right, but even forgetting about the goalie switch for a minute, the part that's showing up now for the Islanders, because look, they've had a great season, we know it. They didn't do anything at the deadline. They did nothing. Yeah. And Lou said he didn't want to ruin the chemistry, and he could say that until the cows come home, but he needed help on that team. Barry Trotz could only do so much with these guys, with this roster. And look, and Barry Trotz should have played Michael Del Cole last night. Playing Cal Clutterbuck, who's already banged up, who's going to play. He played 1 minute of shorthanded play. I'm so tired of when coaches say, well, he played the penalty kill. He played a minute.
I'm guessing they're missing this guy that wore number 91 a little bit. I mean,
that's ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous.
Stop that. Come on. That guy
is not ridiculous. Don't give me that.
No, the guy who's wearing number 1 is not playing anymore, Mike. I mean, the bottom line is, as much as we want to rip the Islanders apart, they're still alive. Last I checked,
they replaced him with Valtteri Filppula. They didn't replace him.
Go to Vegas and bet the Islanders.
Lou is in these things. The reason he built I started 7 sentences there. I'm going to try again. All right. The reason Lou Lamoriello has been so successful in his life as a GM is he builds for the long haul. Okay, he's a full-time guy, right? He's not the kind of guy who's going to. I'm going to mute Kevin for a second. He's not the kind of guy who's going to sit there and and do something for now. The reason he doesn't make a trade at the deadline, Russ, is because no one expected the Islanders to be here.
But it doesn't matter. He knew. No. They knew at that point they had a great chance of making the playoffs, and he should have done something. You cannot defend him doing nothing, because not only is it going to cost them next year when they can't sign some of these players, this would have been their run. You don't know what year is going to be. You can go for the long haul all you want.
I mean, all I can say is Brock Nelson and Anders Lee are unrestricted free agents. If they decide that they're going to walk, that organization is screwed.
They're not going to walk. I mean, and I'll tell you right now that this is.
So how many of the three? Because Eberle is as well. How many of the 3 are they signing at?
They're definitely signing. Eberle is the only one that's a question mark.
So you think they're signing 2 out of the 3? So let's say they spend.
I'll go even further. I wish Kevin was on right now because he would back me up here. But we'll get him when he gets back. I would even go further to say that they already know that Lou already knows what Brock Nelson and Lee are getting.
Okay. Let's say that's true. They also have to pay Leonard a real contract now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Are they going to do that?
Yeah, they've got money.
Okay. And will they go shopping?
And then will they go shopping too after taking care of what's in house? This is a lot. You're saying yes to a lot of things that aren't definites.
They've got a ton of cap space.
It doesn't matter.
They have players that they're not a. This is not a. Lee. These aren't $10 million players. Okay. These are. It's not. We're not like trying to sign Mitch Marner or Sebastian Aho.
If they want to be a real Stanley Cup team, they'll need a $10 million player.
And they will go hard after Panarin. There's no two ways about it. They will,
which will fail because he's going to Florida. But no, I have immense respect for Lou Lamoriello. There's no question, and he really helped the Leafs turn things around in his tenure in Toronto. But the one thing that he didn't do is spend the cap with the richest organization in the league.
Right.
He didn't. He could have, and he didn't.
And let's be fair about this. Ledecky has already said. Ledecky has already said he is not going to spend to the cap until his next arena is intact. And so I'm not expecting the Islanders to even spend near the cap. To be honest, they'll probably be $5 million, $6 million away from the cap. That's probably their budget. They are a budget team.
Yeah, no, they're a budget team right now until they get their building. There's no question about it. They don't have to be spending to the cap. They don't have to go to the cap for what they have right now. They do have a lot of key players they have to sign, but they don't have to go to the cap. And if they get Panarin, that could change things. They could go a little bit higher for sure, but that's what you do when you get an opportunity to player like that. You go a little bit higher, right? That's how it works. But Mark in the chat room, who is pretty tied in with this stuff sometimes in Regina at least, says that word around Regina is that Eberle is going to stay on the island. I don't doubt that for a second.
You're going to let the defense stand pat? Is Lou going to call Tommy Alberline? Like, what's going to happen?
No, he's going to have to. He is ahead of this. He is playing with house money.
Ken Danico out of retirement.
Tommy
If you're Lou Lamoriello,
Alberline.
he's playing for the Islanders because they haven't been there for a while. But if you're Lou Lamoriello and you've already won Stanley Cups, you're looking at this thing like you're just playing with house money. You're just this is like you're not supposed to be there
I don't
at all.
think Lou looks at it like that, Eck. I think Lou
that is the
is
hardest sell. Go ahead, Peter.
very, very invested in what he does. I don't think he is someone who's sitting here going, well, I've won Stanley Cups. I've done all this. I'm just going to fart around for the Islanders.
He's not farting around.
I think he's in this to win it.
He is,
and he knows he can.
He is in it to win it, but he also knows that he's also a really, really big team chemistry guy. I mean, that's how the Devils did what they did.
Sure.
And that's him not moving players in because if you remember in John Madden, Eliash, Rafalski, Stevens.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that benefit here.
He's getting it together. No, he's Lee and Besser, and these guys are the beginnings of that in a large way.
How did team chemistry and that factor at the deadline work for Tampa and Toronto? It meant first round exits.
And Winnipeg.
And Winnipeg brought in Hayes. I mean,
you're
talking about they still brought in and they had team chemistry problems.
Yeah, they did. And you're talking about teams that in Tampa and Toronto who are favorites. They're they were expected to win. I mean, Toronto might have been a favorite in that series, but they're still a 100-point team. I mean, you're talking about a totally different. I mean, you're talking about everyone thought Toronto would everyone knew they were a playoff team and at least a playoff team, and probably they weren't going to be successful unless they won around it.
Unless they face the Bruins and then they would lose.
Right. Okay, so there you have it. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, there is no question. I mean, Lou's not throwing in the towel. He's building this team for the long haul. He's saying, I'm not going to screw around with bringing somebody else in that's going to mess with this team at the deadline, when he knew that this line was this year was a complete shock to everyone. And also, he's talking to Barry Trotz constantly, and Trotz is saying, I see what I need. I have the beginnings of that core that we need to make the Islanders again. And that's what he's doing. And they are getting their butts kicked right now by Carolina for sure, because they can't score goals for sure. And yes, it would help to have Tavares in there. But at the end of the day, whatever the Islanders did worked better than what Toronto did. And Tavares isn't playing, and the Islanders are. And yes, you could say if the Islanders played Boston in the first round, they may have lost to them, just like Toronto lost to Boston in the first round. But they may have also beat them, and Toronto may have lost to the Penguins in the first round. It's all possible. So at the end of the day, this, to me, you have to just take it into account that the Islanders are way ahead of schedule. Why would you screw with something that's obviously very strong? You've got the players there that Trotz wants, and they're working on more players. And if they go out and they get themselves some serious scoring talent with a guy like Panarin, who will be involved, because Panarin is not just simply going to go to the Panthers. There's going to be, which everyone believes he is. He may stay in Columbus, which I talked to him about last night.
If the Panthers pay him the money that he thinks he's worth, he'll go to the Panthers. I mean, if he doesn't, then he goes to the market and he sees what he can get. But I mean, I mean, there's just too much chatter out there that he's going to Florida. I don't think.
I wanted to add one thing.
Yeah.
You can't tell the New York market that you're playing with house money when you've made it to the playoffs and had a great record.
No, you're right about that. Okay, and he's not telling anyone he's playing with house money.
No, I know.
I'm telling you what I think he's thinking.
I'm saying you can't sell that to them, or that'll backfire big time.
Right.
No, but you can sell the the underdog thing to New York really well. Okay, that New York loves their underdogs, as you know, because you're a Mets fan.
I'll tell
you. I mean, this New York likes the scrappy guys, even if they lose. If they're scrappy, they'll go for it. And the Mets did that for what, 20 years?
But there's a problem. There's a problem to that. It's the Islanders. If it was the Rangers, then they would be on the radar. I listen to New York radio because I'm a Yankee fan. The only mention I've heard of the Islanders getting through the first round into the second round has been in the first 20 minutes of their midday show. The big guys like Michael King
and that's 20 minutes more than they ever gave the Devils.
Don't talk about the Islanders. They're not on the radar.
They're not on the radar on that radio station, but there are huge. The Islanders fan base is enormously into them. There is an enormous
sports radio stations in New York don't talk about. If it was the Rangers in the second round, they'd be talking about them every single friggin' day.
All I'm saying
about that, Russ, would they?
Back in the 80s, if this was the 80s Islanders, they would be talking about them every single day. They would.
Well, right, but that was cups. They were dynasty.
And they did. But now, because really the average radio Joes, they don't believe in this team. And down 3-0 now, they'll never talk about them. So that's the problem with it. In New York, unfortunately, you have to make it to the conference finals before they start talking about you on radio anyhow, even the Rangers for the most part. So they're not going to do that. But the other thing about the Islanders is this. It's never a guarantee you're making the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
We talked about locking up all those players. We didn't talk about how they're fixing their defense, which has to be fixed. They don't have anybody really that could come up. Devin Taves is the only one now who, had a chance to sort of help them, and he has helped them. There are plenty of things the Islanders have to fix here, and that's going to be the problem for Lou in the offseason because a lot of teams have a lot of problems to fix. So,
but Russ, that's a defensive team in hockey.
But if things go the way we've seen things, and he's working with Barry Trotz, who is a very competent coach, who has built incredible teams and helped build them, there is a lot of potential movement going on this year, like a ton. There's the best free agent crop we've had in ages.
But those are all one-year deals. Go look at their deals right now, Peter. Val Filppula.
No, I know that, and that's fine
too.
That's fine. And the best thing is that they can starting to realize that this team isn't complete. Like they're not going to get a false sense of hope where Kyle Dubas, where Dave Nonis went all in 2013 after thinking they should have won Game 7.
Yes,
like this is the best thing. If you're going to go out this way, realizing that you have opportunity for change, and there is change available.
David Clarkson and Dave Bolin, but and talk about what Kevin was mentioning with Abdelkader. You want to talk about a boat anchor of a contract? How about Johnny Boychuk for 3 more years at $6 million? Good luck trying to get rid of that thing.
Yeah,
no, it's a big deal. It's a big problem. I don't know if Lou will have the ability to buy it out or not.
No way they'll buy it out.
No, it's not a no way, but I don't think he will. I really don't get the impression he will. So.
But I'm looking.
I think you guys are being completely unfair to the Islanders, and
let's look at it for 1 sec. So they have $9 million in cap space, right?
Yeah. Let's get Kevin's input on the Islanders because Kevin, they're down 3 games.
I'm going to say the one thing I said about that I wanted Kevin to respond to about the Islanders. Is that okay, Mike? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I just wanted. No, go ahead.
Yeah, basically we're talking about. I'm sorry, Mike. Continue. Please.
No, I was just going to set it up here. We're talking about the Islanders being down 3-0 to Carolina, and the outlook of their team for the future with guys like Lee and Brock Nelson and Eberle, all UFAs. I mean, there's a young group there. They've got Barzal, they've got some good young defensemen. The goaltending situation's uncertain. Leonard's a UFA. I mean, I looked at them going into the deadline and thought if they add a player or two, they could really improve their chances. Because at that point, I think they were in first place in the Metro. Lou didn't do it. They got through Pittsburgh. That was impressive. But now they're going down. Like I said, they're going down to half of the Charlotte Checkers. And I'm not sold on where the Islanders are going right now.
Yeah, I was critical of Lou Lamoriello as well. When we ranked. We did winners and losers. I made the Islanders a loser because I thought they needed to do something too, particularly when you have such a strong defensive team. Like they were number 1 defensive team in the league.
Yep.
Right.
So, you should have tried to have gone out and got more goals. And, Lou Lamoriello has always had faith in his ability to convince people to stay, but I think he's going to lose Anders Lee. I think Anders Lee is going to be a hot commodity in the free agent marketplace.
Extremely hot commodity.
Yeah.
No, he's not commodity. I don't think he's going to lose him though.
Oh,
I mean, he might. Of course, anything's possible. But this feel just from all the years, like I tried to be a Lou whisperer in New Jersey. We all tried to be because Lou wouldn't tell you anything, but you just talk to people around the teams like that. If this was the Devils, I would tell you that Lee and
Nelson
are already in the bag and Lou knows it and is not going to tell anybody about it or not going to put it out there at all because that's what he would do in New Jersey all the time. Like he would.
Well, for sure he would do that, but I've heard the opposite about Lee. I don't know anything about Nelson, but I've heard that he was going to test the marketplace. Now, saying all that, I also am very well aware of that Lou actually is quite persuasive in keeping his players. So and people like playing for Lou.
Yes, so. You have 8 UFAs and 2 RFAs. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think there is concern there about where they'll be when the smoke clears, but they do have some good young players. But I don't think they're a lock to keep moving along, and they're going to be a contender for the next 4 or 5 years. They're going to have to do some work to stay in the hunt here because the Rangers, I love the Adam Fox move for them.
Oh, yeah.
They've got, and they were benefited by the fact that he obviously that's where he wanted to go, and that's happened before for them. So
it's true, isn't it? And a lot,
that's for sure. So that division is going to be tough. So I don't think. In terms of their goalie, like what's the goalie market really going to be like out there? Is Calgary going to get a goalie? Columbus will need to look at a goalie.
Bobrovsky will be on the market for sure.
Yeah. People keep saying that Bobrovsky's going to Florida, but are they going to have 153 goalies in Florida? Like, you can't have like $16 or $18 million in goalies. The Dallas Stars tried that; it didn't work.
No, and I think Panarin is a better bet to Florida as a sure thing, but not necessarily. But that's not even a sure thing. Like I could see Panarin, basically being convinced even to stay in Columbus a little bit. And just from talking to people over there, I get the sense that I'm not saying he's going to sign an 8-year deal in Columbus, but maybe a 3 to 5 year deal in Columbus. Depending on how this plays out from here, there's a lot now, and Bobrovsky would probably stay too, but I think they don't want Bobrovsky to stay because they realize the money he's going to spend for him and the risk, even though he's playing out of his mind right now. They have other goalies that they're, that are coming up in their system. They're really into this Elvis guy, all of that. Who knows?
There's 4 or 5 teams that would want goalies, and there's 3 good ones out there. So I think there's a market.
And Kevin, and I think what we're gonna have to look out for at the draft or close to it is that secondary market of goaltenders, young goalies who teams think can be number ones, like Cal Peterson or Jack Campbell in LA, Georgiev with the Rangers. Those guys will be commodities that those teams will sell because they've already got a number one. And
but the problem is where do they go? There just aren't a lot of teams looking for goalies. That's the
Kevin. I think there are.
I think there are.
I think
I think I'd like to know what they are.
I think Calgary. Calgary's
number one.
Calgary's going to be heavy in on Bobrovsky. I think
Edmonton should be.
They should be, but I hear they're not. So,
Edmonton should be.
Going to be. So
what about Arizona?
Unless they think Ranta can stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do.
Both of their goalies were really good last year.
Well, I mean, Kemper did relief.
I don't have that sense. I talk to Chaika pretty regularly. I don't have that sense.
I love Ranta.
I see Florida. I see Calgary.
Flyers are
Vancouver. I could see Vancouver. I could see Vancouver and Bobrovsky.
San Jose.
Buffalo.
The Flyers too, unless it's a done deal with Cantel, but the Flyers are going to get a backup goalie too.
Well, the backup goalies are different. The backup goalie market is strong. But it's the number one goalie market that I think is limited.
And this is the trend that we've noticed with a few of these teams in the playoffs right now. It's not with the exception of Bobrovsky and maybe Martin Jones, most of these teams had 1A, 1B scenarios where the backup played 30 games, like McElhinney did in Carolina. And we have to remember the way that sports science has become, the trend in this league. It makes no sense if you're going to limit the minutes of a player on a daily basis in a game that you don't want to limit the amount of starts that a goaltender wants to start. So I think we're going to start going down the road of goalies splitting, not 40-40, but maybe
50-30 is what Chuck Fletcher told us the Flyers are going to do. Right. And I think 50-30 is the new split.
I did some research and it really looks like Talbot is going to be here for signing.
Okay.
And he knew the whole plan, I guess. Like he knew that Elliott would be playing. It's a bizarre situation.
It doesn't make any sense. But
I think there'll be 3 or 4 teams at least looking for that top goalie. And
you just made my point. 3 or 4 is not a big market for 6 goalies. 6 and the 4 don't go.
I don't know if there's 6. I mean, who do you think? But I'm only counting top guys, Kev. Leonard's a top guy. Bobrovsky's a top guy. And Varlamov. I'm not counting the other guys. I think
Mike Smith's out there too. Remember, Mike Smith is in a call.
No, but he's not a top guy. That's my point. Those guys will be looking for jobs, and those guys are going to end up taking the 1B jobs. That's why I'm saying I think it is still strong for the. I don't think most teams look at Mike Smith as a number 1 goalie anymore. I don't.
Well, I did. This is what I would. But this would be my final point on it. If I'm Sergei Bobrovsky, and I start and I get in the free agent marketplace. And you tell me my options are Florida, Calgary, Buffalo, and what was the other one?
I was going to say
Arizona or the Islanders, depending on
if I look at that, I'm saying to myself, that's not a strong market. Will he get a job? Well, sure.
No, Calgary is the number 1 team in the West, right?
Well, Calgary's a good option. You're going to go to a team that's going to contend. That is a good option.
You know what he's saying? He's saying, I'm stocking up on Coppertone and Hello Sunrise. That's what he's saying.
I think that's just one of the problems. Like, we always talk about, the limited options but if you're a goalie, there's only 31 jobs if you want to be a number 1. So it's never great. There's never 10 teams looking for goalies. So.
Yeah. No, that's true too. That's true. I mean,
you wanted to bring up something that you wanted to talk about.
No, I just want to. I mean, my main thing was I don't always trust UFAs, pending UFAs, and Lou Lamoriello, because I feel like he does have a sense of these things, and no one is more about building, that core group of players than Lou is, right? So he's talking to those guys. I mean, in New Jersey, that core group in New Jersey had a lot of power. And it was crazy. That's what he really does. He just does that. And Barry Trotz is very similar. That's why they work so well together. What really makes me frustrated is we live in this hockey world, this sports world all the time of journalism, where we love to rip the teams that fall apart. We love the story of Toronto's. They've lost 3 times in a row in the playoffs, whatever. But we never give credit to a team like the Islanders, and we just rip on the Islanders now when no one in the right mind thought they'd make the playoffs, nonetheless sweep the Penguins, nonetheless, be in the second round. I mean, so why are we sitting here? I mean, it's amazing that we, yes, they have work to do. They have work to do, but can't we at least give them, my gosh, they're so far ahead of schedule right now that it's kind of crazy. I mean, I think that's something we rip teams when they're on the other direction, but we're really slow to praise teams when they actually are doing something remarkable. I mean, which both Carolina and the Islanders are. I mean, there's no question about it, and it is kind of sucky that these 2 Cinderella teams have to face each other. Well, and there's no question that game 2 should have been the Islanders game. As much as it's 3-0 right now, the Islanders dominated game 2 and completely. And I mean, how many posts they hit in that game? It was just crazy, right? So
it was like watching the Bells of St. Mary's.
Oh my gosh, there was that was angels in the outfield for Carolina that game. I mean, there was just something going on, for Carolina in that one, and so it's 3-0 now, but it could actually be 2-1. And I still don't think I'm still not counting the Islanders out and making this like a 5 or 6 game series. I don't think.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe. I'm just saying that Carolina seems to be magical right now, as does Columbus, Kevin. And looking at that series and watching Boston through 7 games with Toronto and watching how they're playing against Columbus, I've come to the conclusion is that the Blue Jackets are out Bruinsing the Bruins. They're younger. They're
like that.
They're younger. They're bigger. And when Boston tries to impose their physical will like they did against Toronto, they're getting their bell rung by the Blue Jackets. They're getting a response from the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
They didn't get that response from Toronto, and I have to give Tortorella credit. I mean, early in and Russ pointed this out early in the series. In the first round series against Tampa, when they were down 3-0 in that first period, they were trying to intimidate the Lightning, and they were getting killed on that. But it's one thing to be proactive and physically try to confront an opponent. It's another thing to sort of respond, and that's what they're doing. Boston is trying to play the same game that they played against Toronto, and Columbus is sticking it back in their face.
Yeah, no, they are. I think that's pretty impressive. And you know, the one thing that's just striking to me about Columbus is how good their defense is right now. Like their defense is, and not necessarily in their own zone because they are giving up chances, but how good their defense is on the blue line in the opposing zones. Like
they're loading it up on 3 defensemen.
Those three are pretty friggin' good defensemen. I mean,
remember they're without Ryan Murray. Ryan Murray had played a game in the playoffs. They're playing 20+ minutes with Savard, Werenski, and Seth Jones.
But how good are those 3? I mean, those 3 are they're all so big and so good, and they move the puck so quickly. And they're all like they're not headmen, but they have that headman-like quality about all 3 of them at times. It's amazing to see like they're the modern day puck moving big defensemen, and they've got 3 of them.
Yeah, I think Seth Jones might be the best player in the playoffs right now.
I totally agree. I this year has been, to me, like this has been the Seth Jones year all out, because he's just been incredible at every turn. Like I thought in the All-Star game, which is, we don't talk about the All-Star game very much as mattering, but in the All-Star game, just in everything about like the big events beforehand, the actual game itself, Seth Jones showed that he's just like he makes moves that he shouldn't be able to make at his size as a defenseman, and you're just blown away by them. He's just crazy.
Kev, let me ask you a couple quick questions. One, the reaction from out there after the Brad Marchand punch on Harrington, especially after the Department of Player Safety came out and said that they weren't going to even fine him, let alone suspend him. I mean, I
read your article, Kev. It's a really good article on that.
Yeah, I mean, don't you perceive that the Department of Player Safety has a little egg on their face? Because I mean, not to say that they should throw the book at them.
I understand their position. I mean, their position is that there's a difference between what they frown upon and what they suspend for. Like there's stuff that they tell you that's just unacceptable. And then there's stuff that, is egregious enough that they're going to suspend you. But, my argument was, in all walks of life, like wherever you're working, at some point, if you get yourself in trouble, they call you in and they say, if you even look sideways at someone wrong, or if you say the wrong thing, you're gone. Like, the bar changes. So for me, even though for most people that would not have been a suspension, for Marchand, it should be. Right. Because he's been warned so often, and they have to sort of correct this behavior. And I thought it should have been a suspension. And I thought the timing of it would have made it a really difficult suspension. And boy, if you say you're out for a game, 4, like that would have been a very harsh punishment.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I mean, if it was a standalone incident, fine, maybe he gets away with a fine. But we're talking about the mad liquor here. We're talking about the guy who made a complete ass of himself in the playoffs last year, and I'm sure the league basically told Bruce Cassidy and Don Sweeney, tell this guy to stop it, or we're gonna suspend him. And, then he goes out this year and does something else different. It wasn't licking, but it was punching somebody in the back of the head. At a certain point, you have to be stopped. You have to stop with, I guess, the star treatment that you're giving players because he's a 100-point scorer and important to the Bruins. That shouldn't matter. If he does something stupid, he should be fined or suspended.
Yeah, I don't think that was the issue in this case. I think it was just a matter of, I don't think anybody would have been suspended for that,
Right.
but I think he should be for that.
Yeah, that's right. I like the way you put it.
Just for his history, and the fact that, like, I mean, nothing says that he has a problem more than the fact that, you know, here they are in just an incredibly tight series where everything matters. He knows he's under the microscope, and he can't stop himself. He couldn't stop himself from going up and punching him in the back of the head.
Yeah. Kevin, that's exactly it. No, I said this yesterday, or maybe it was Monday, and I said, what's the difference between Brad Marchand and Sean Avery? Like,
more talented player. Yeah, that's it.
More talented player. But the lows are just as low.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I mean, you know,
he's smarter about it though than some of the other players.
Come on.
I'm not saying it's smart. Smart
smart is like intelligence to being a dirtbag, because if you do that just lowers it to a point where you can say, well, if you're smart about being really ruthless, you're okay to do it.
No, you're not okay to do it.
Don't even that's a moral equivalency I'm not going to accept from you. You're better than that. You be better.
and honestly,
I'm not saying there's a moral equivalency.
This may be a little off, but what's the difference between Brad Marchand and Nazem Kadri? I mean, they both do stupid things. I mean, Kadri was questioned by, you know, you told the team you weren't going to be an idiot last year, and you were an idiot this year. What
the difference is that Marchand knows and understands the line better than Kadri does, and that line might be. And we can debate where that line is, but for whatever reason, Marchand seems to know where that line is because he's not getting hearings for these things. Like, he seems to know where that line is for him, at least. Where Kadri hasn't figured out where that line is for him. He just goes over it, you know, indiscriminately, which is, to me, the difference. I mean, and that's where, and I say Marchand's smarter. That's what I mean. He's smarter in terms of, like, he's a smart criminal. That doesn't mean I respect him for it. I just think he's very smart at getting away with it.
Criminal.
By the way, I know we're gonna have to go here, but I think let's close it out on this. If we're gonna close it out, I love the retort of the Carolina Hurricanes. Twitter account when the Islanders Twitter account put out that tag you're it after Nelson hit the goalie on the helmet there, and the Carolina Hurricanes Twitter put out. They're playing tag. We're playing hockey over here.
I know, it was awesome, wasn't it?
That was terrific. So,
one more thing I want to do before we go.
Thanks, Kevin.
This is Kevin. Something that really bothered me a lot. Okay, is this so we're watching the game the other night, and the goal that, you know, is reviewed that goes in on Bobrovsky. Right. It's obviously a goal. Everyone knows it's a goal. You know, the referee doesn't see it. The puck's in the net. He's waving it off, kind of ridiculousness and all that stuff, right? The thing that made me crazy about it wasn't that. It was a goal. They got the right call. They made the right move. All this stuff. The thing that made me crazy, Pete, I don't know if you had the same feed or not. Are you getting the NBC feed up there?
So it depends.
Did you have like Pierre in that game? Like, you know, between the benches, Pierre?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I saw this part though.
All right, so what happens is Pierre between the benches, right, gets note from Toronto that it's a good goal.
No. It wasn't Pierre. It was Milbury. Milbury said on the air.
Yeah.
He says on the air before the referee announces it. Says it was Pierre. Said, I thought it was Pierre, wasn't it?
No, it was Milbury. I swear to God, Zach. I heard it.
Yeah, so whatever it was, it bothered the hell out of me.
Yes.
That was allowed to happen. That, like,
but you know why? Because it undercuts the tension. It's like
it's just it's like, does the NHL have no clue as to drama in this thing? And also, it also makes NBC look like it's way too. I wish Kevin was here for this. Way too tied to the NHL. Like, they are. We know they're tied to the NHL, but at the same time, it's like they're not so tied to the NHL that they know exactly what's happening.
You want to know a good comparison to that? And they've gotten away from this the last few years. But if you watch the NFL draft on ESPN or NFL Network, the commentators are telling you who the pick is before the pick is actually made. Because they've been told by these teams or their sources that the pick is being made, and nobody that you could basically.
And that is wrong. You're right, but even that, you hear that sometimes. Bob McKenzie will say, "Well, I'm hearing this is the NHL draft." You hear that, but. Even that is not directly from this is directly from the war room in Toronto.
Yeah, it's brutal.
that happens. So if you're in the building there, and you're listening to the broadcast somehow, which you can in this day and age, do that. What happened before the players on the bench knew what happened. That to me is insane. There's no way that should be that NBC should do that. And they should know better. It makes them look really amateur to me. It makes them look.
It just opens up a whole moral quagmire of stuff.
But it's in the mentality of the current media where it's get it out first.
Oh, I know.
And
this is not.
It's their own broadcast.
But this is the thing, and this is the argument I've had forever about this. If you want to break news, that's one thing. But what they did was, we've had this debate, was they put a press release out, because that's not breaking news. If the Toronto group tells you it's a goal, you are literally just reporting for them. You're not breaking.
What I'm curious at, and I have no idea, but I would assume what happened was somebody in the war room in Toronto texted Milbury and told him it's a good goal, and it's okay. How about concentrating on getting?
They also said something, Mike. They said something like, "We now have direct contact." They said something right before. I wish it wasn't like that. It wasn't like Milbury made it screwed up and somebody told him that, which is because one thing. They said this new system we have in place gives us direct contact.
They probably have a tie line or an ISDN line.
To me, it was like
a direct audio.
Or it doesn't. They just need it. They can still get text, but they're actually admitting to that direct contact with the war room, which to me is so anti-sports, like in broadcasting and stuff like that. It feels completely and utterly wrong. It would be like NBC, like the better equation would be this, Mike. They're pulling up the number that the next pick is the Montreal Canadiens. The next pick is, and NBC covering it's like, oh, we know that the first pick's going to be. They that's what it was to me.
Yeah.
All right, we got to go. Peter. Thank you very much for joining. I got to go too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. As always, it's fun to disagree with you.
As always.
It's amazing. No, I completely respect you. Obviously, you know that. And I respect all you guys out there too. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening to the show. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/hockey and help support the show. We could really use the help. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.